talk about the tax rate is applied once again to the assessed value of the taxable property and calculate the amount of the property tax to be paid. So the millage rate is usually stated as dollars per thousand. So the millage rate of 5 mills is $5 per thousand of assessed value, which is the rate of 0.005. And so the millage rate is established each year by the levying authority, which is the council. Looking at a market value of a property of $150,000. And so its assessed value would be $60,000. So here we just kind of show that if you take that 40%, which is $60,000, multiplied by say 5 mills, then the annual property tax would be $300. So this is just once again going through just how to calculate the assessed value and what the tax will be. And so here, tax rate comparison, our current millage rate for FY22 is 12.899. And as I mentioned, we're recommending that the millage rate for FY 2023 remains at 12.899. And so the millage rate is not being increased in the city of South Fulton. So I want to definitely make that understandable to the citizens of South Fulton. The tax rate will be the same for 2022 as it was in 2021. And the advertised increase of 56.32% is due to the annexation of Fulton Industrial Boulevard on last year.
I want to start here and try to give an overview of what the homestead exemption is and just let the citizens know that this is a legal provision that helps reduce the amount of the property tax that is owed by an owner-occupied home. And this exemption is established by state law and is voted upon by citizens in a given city, county, or school district. And the basic homestead exemption is the only local exemption currently offered for the city of South Fulton. Basically, the basic homestead exemption is $30,000 plus 3% of floating homestead, which is the CPI, is frozen. And to qualify for this, you must own, occupy, and claim the property as your legal residence on July 1st of the year in which you're first qualified for the exemption. So they would have need to have owned and occupied the home as of July 1, 2022. And the person applying for the homestead exemption must be listed on the deed. And so they must continue to own and live in the home as their primary residence as long as they claim this exemption. This is how to apply for the exemption. So this is just basically saying that if you have not already applied for the homestead exemption, which you must have applied before April the 1st, 2022, in order to have this exemption on your current tax bill, which will go out in October. So to qualify for next year, it needs to be done by April the 1st, 2023. And all homestead exemption filings are applied for directly with the Fulton County Board of Assessors office. They can do that by mail, in person, or online. And for any other questions, they can call 404-612-6440, extension 4. And here we list the mail-in or in-person address, which is located at 235 Peachtree Street, Northeast Suite 1100 in Atlanta, Georgia, 30303, or the South Fulton Service Center, which is located at 5600 Stonewall Tail Road, Suite 224, College Park, Georgia, 30349, and the online website, which is www.fultonassessor.org. And so what documents do they need to provide? One is going to be a Georgia driver's license or a Georgia identification. They need to know the parcel number. They need to, the owner's name as listed on the deed, the property address, the contact phone number, social security number, state of residence, current registration for all vehicles, and the registrations must be in Fulton County. You need the date of birth for the owner and the spouse. If it's a trust, you need an affidavit with the name of a trust. So the trust affidavit if the property is in the name of a trust. And things that you need to know, you cannot claim a homestead exemption if you claim one anywhere else. So you can't have it on multiple properties. The homestead exemption do not apply to commercial or rental properties or a second home. Homestead exemption apply to individuals and not to corporations. Married couples may claim only one exemption. That's even if they own property separately. Home exemptions renew each year automatically as long as the citizen own and occupy the home as their primary residence. If the names on the deed change, the person listed on the new deed who occupies the property will need to reapply for homestead exemption. So if you sell that property, let's say in April or May, then that person who is the new owner must apply for homestead exemption for the next year. Okay, how does the homestead exemption reduce your property tax? So each property is appraised at the fair market value. Then we take that property is taxed at 40% of the fair market value to come up with the assessed value. The homestead exemption amount is then deducted from that assessed value to come up with the taxable value. And tax amount are calculated using the city, school, and the county millage rate times the taxable value. So on here, I want to show how the homestead exemption reduce your property tax. And this is just using the current city millage rate. So if you have a non-homestead property where it's valued at $100,000, and as I said, we take 40% of that to come up with the assessed value is $40,000. With $40,000, since you're not getting an exemption on it, you multiply that $40,000 by the millage rate, which the current millage rate is 12.899. So your city of South Fulton property tax would be $515.96. Whereas if you take that same property and you get the local exemption, and that's just taking the value of the local exemption of taking $30,000 off of the $40,000, then your taxable value now goes from $40,000 to $10,000. So multiplying that $10,000 by the current millage rate of 12.899, you can see that your city of South Fulton property tax is $128.99. So you have a savings of $386.97 by making sure you have that homestead exemption. Okay. And so here, this goes in and shows the tax rate comparison that if you take the rollback rate, which is the column on your left, using a property that have a fair market value of $175,000, 40% assessed would be $70,000 the assessed value. You take that local exemption of $30,000 again, so your taxable value is $40,000. If you take that $40,000 taxable value multiplied by the rollback rate, which is 9.699, the city property tax would be $387.96. Using the same fair market value with the same assessed value of $70,000, with the same local exemption of $30,000, taxable value of $40,000, multiplying that by the current millage rate of 12.899, the city property tax bill would be $515.96.
With the homestead exemption, is that something that you only have to apply for one time, or if you are under 65, different than the senior homestead exemption, do you have to reapply for that exemption every year?
Yeah, once you apply for the exemption, as long as you own the home, live in the home, that exemption will stay there.
While all homeowners in the city of South Fulton may qualify for a basic homestead exemption, there are different exemptions may also apply to property taxes for Fulton County and Fulton County school system. And so there are many different exemptions for seniors and people with full medical disabilities. Disability exemptions are also available for veterans and their surviving spouses, as well as exemptions are also available for surviving spouses of peace officers and firefighters killed in the line of duty. And many of the special exemptions have requirements for age and or income. So in order to find out more information about that, and contact the Fulton County Tax Assessor's Office for further details. The city of South Fulton does not receive the entire amount of the property tax collected. And so based on the prior tax year, the city received only 30% of the total property tax, because you can see South Fulton here, and this is a real actual bill. And you see the city of South Fulton portion of this bill for $4,214.26. The city of South Fulton received $1,358.01. The rest of it is for Fulton School, Fulton operation, and then Fulton bond. So that goes to the county.
We also have to take into consideration the lost negotiations that we're having, and that those will obviously not be concluded until after we have fixed our millage rate, which puts us in an interesting situation.
Thank you, Mayor, for mentioning the lost. You're right. The timer has us in a precarious situation, to say the least. And I've been thinking about that a lot. If for some reason lost wasn't renewed, we couldn't add one new service. Our budget would look very similar to what it currently is. Ms. Layton, our budget increased by about $25 million.
Yes, it did.
If that were to go away for some reason and our budget went up 25, we'd actually be looking that we might need to do some cuts.